listened to local artists at the time. Okay, and how did they listen to local artists? There were media that promoted local artists. Radio, television. Back then, on NTA, we had local groups, pop groups, people rock outfits, semicolon and all of that. They would come hold live shows on television. You really didn't have much option beyond that. So that tradition continued over the years. And then about the time we were talking about local artists, the experience in the early 2000s, 2003, 2004, we also had shows in town where we featured a whole lot of local artists. So people would come to those shows just to listen to them. We introduced upcoming artists, startups and all of that. We encouraged them. And that happened quite a lot. And then we played their music on air at no cost to them.
Nice. You just said played their music on air at no cost.
Yeah, we said we were promoting them. We were interested in growing a culture of indigenous artists because we were good. These kids were good. I mean, that's where at the time, I'd say people like Flavor, the Peter and Paul twins, B-Square and all of that, they were all young persons who were coming up in the early 2000s. And they would get their CDs on and you play them on radio. At no cost to them.
So we're talking about Enugu here, right?
Yes, Enugu, yes. These were...
So P-Square, Peter and Paul, were they here at one point? Whoever was promoting them got their music here. They weren't really based in Enugu at the time, but they brought the music here. 21 Week, I could go on, a whole lot of them. Waje, a whole lot of these young persons, and we featured them. Well, there was a brilliant team that was on campus at the time. I'm just trying to remember the name. Bracket?
No, the Bracket. I just remember this young man's name. They did a lovely tune that became quite popular then. I just remember I just remember the name now. I remember at the time. And we gave him a lot of airtime. And he literally blew, as you said. At events, he would be recognized, and that then corporate organizations would have events too, and they invite them. And that was part of promoting them.
You talked about one TV media. In fact, in summary, you talked about the media, being the forefront of propagating a particular culture, which is local content, local musicians, local music. Now, but today, I see a difference in that. The media is more based on making money. Well, because even the artists, you said that you played their songs at no cost, right?
Yeah. That's
so why the difference? Where did it go wrong? Where did we start focusing only on money?
Well, it's changing priorities. At the time, we were concerned about largely in promoting local artists. We had a responsibility to promote these young persons. So it wasn't a matter of a function of how much they were going to get out of them.
Is it like a paradigm shift before you started promoting these artists? What I mean is it like everybody just decided, let's promote local content, or you had like a conference or like a meeting where everybody said, you know what, let's do this?
I'm not going to be naming names, but if you had a radio station and you had a policy, do not take money from artists, promote them, they would come to your radio station and it would increase your content, it would add quality to your content, increase your listenership. And then the others would wonder, well, why is station A getting so much patronage? Then they say, is that what they're doing? The artists themselves will say to them, hey, we went to station A and this is what happened. So over time, that became the way to do it. But then people listened to radio and they watched television. Things have changed. Today, the most popular media are not radio and television. The internet has taken over. And there's so much you do on the internet that's not controlled in any way. So that gives it a different dimension. So you talked about a paradigm shift. Well, yes, in some way, yes. At the time, people depended on radio and television for their information, for their news, for their entertainment. Well, you can say that about now. Now there's so much on the internet that folks can go for long days and weeks without radio and television, and they probably would think they haven't missed much. But
let's look at Lagos, for example. Lagos, they were there just like Enugu, but they never changed. What happened?
Again, it's also the quality of access, what they had access to. In Lagos, for instance, you have about 42, close on 50 vibrant FM stations, and there's competition.
But you said that the media moved from radio, TV to the new age, which is social media.
That's what I'm saying. Coming around to that, that even with social media, if there is vibrancy in the content, people would still listen to radio and television. It's to begin with, it's easier. The content you have on radio and television, you can easily access much more readily than on the internet, where you need to buy data and have access to the internet. Without data, you can't. But on radio and television, it's free to air. Most of it is free to air. It's not. You don't even need to get a cable connection to get access to some of these things. So you find that in the Lagos axis, that's Lagos, Ogun, Ibadan axis, there's a lot of vibrancy in the content, which holds, and then because of that, there's competition, and that ensures continuity in viewership and listenership. So that also ensures continuity in advert patronage by the advertisers and sponsors of programs. And then they have shows, they have media events, they have, and so on. So the media culture and entertainment culture in Lagos is a bit more vibrant than it is in the southeast. So one would expect such responses to be more vibrant in the southwest, in the Lagos area, than in the southeast.
Okay, so how did we miss out on that? Because you just said that things changed. Just like when I interviewed Mr. Roy, he said that things changed. Before now, things were done manually. You have to go to the radio stations and people listen to the radio, just as you're saying. But then came the internet. So what really changed with the Enugu people? Is it that we lost the drive to promote our own culture?
Well, at the time, the trajectory in Enugu was going in a particular direction. There was a trend that happened in Enugu at the time. We went from the traditional media to some more vibrant media. Radio stations were stepping up.
Okay.
Yes, and that happened for a few years, and then there was a dampener. It appeared they went down again, and it takes time for these things to pick up. What I'm saying is that the radio station creates a culture, creates a listenership, creates an audience. It says this is, for instance, take a radio station that says we have a youthful, educated, upwardly mobile, urban-based audience. That's a whole lot of vibrancy, as opposed to a radio station that says, well, everybody is our audience. So that happened in Enugu. The media at the time identified a vibrant audience, went with it for some time, and then they lost it. So that you didn't blame the audience, the people, for the shift, because there really wasn't much happening at the time. And there's not much happening. There's another problem really actually with the media. You don't know why did the media do that? Nobody will say this to you openly, but truth is, the world is moving away from broadcasting. The world is moving to narrowcasting.
Narrowcasting, please define.
It's amazing thing is, it's done everywhere, but we probably didn't have the courage to give it the tag. What does CNN do? CNN looks at the news. For every story, there is a news angle. If you're having the awards, the global awards, the World Cup, the whatever, they would not go show you the entire awards or the entire match. They would take the high points of it, give you the news, and move on to some other things. Channels Television does it in Nigeria. They take the news angle of something. Channel O did it, pioneered it, and it became very popular. The movie channels are doing it. The Christian channels are also doing it. They identify a particular audience, identify the content to feed that audience, and stay with that 24 hours. They are consistent with that. That's narrowcasting. Rather than take on a broad general audience, we do everything. We do women, we do children, we do agriculture, law, human rights, everything, just about everything.
Oh, I
yes,
see.
Yes. But so some stations still do that. That's omnibus broadcasting. It's going. That's the thing. But our people are not going with it. The Lagos stations, you said, have begun to identify that. So they say, look, hey, we are a mid-tempo station. We are a youth-centered station. So they have things like content-specific stations, audience-specific. They even have a women FM station.
So you define what you are giving out so that you can stick to the program.
Exactly. So it even helps with advertising. You can then say to the advertiser, hey, you want this particular audience. I have that audience captive 24 hours a day. Bring your advertising. So that's the new trend. But stations in the Southeast are still sticking with omnibus broadcasting. We do everything. I know. Today we're doing agriculture, the next day we're doing politics, it's sports. There are sports stations. Stations are special. All the sports television stations that dwell on the European premierships, all the various national premier soccer competitions are popular, very popular. That's narrowcasting.
That's specialization. You specialize in a particular area, and then you get better at it because, just as they say, it goes jack of all trade, master of none.
But that's the trend. That's where everybody's going now. But it's difficult preaching it to stations in the Southeast. They don't understand.
Why?
Because they are traditional. Two, they are not sufficient. They do not go with the times, unfortunately.
They don't go with the times.
Yes, the times, I said, are moving in a particular direction. And they are saying, look, hey, this is how we've always done things. It hurts me when I hear things like, oh, this is how we've done it for 25 years. I say, no, that's not how it's done. How is it being done everywhere else in the world? That you've done it this way for 25 years doesn't say that's the right way to do it. They're sticking with the way they've always done things. And as a man said, if you keep doing things the same way repeatedly, you don't expect different results. You still get the same staid, hackneyed, outdated, washed out results. This is what they get. So that's why broadcasting in the region is that way.
And how did this affect the music industry in Enugu?
So the music industry is going with the times too. If you're an artist and you want to reach a particular audience, you find that you do not have access to that audience on stations in Enugu. So, why are Enugu artists like the Flavors, the Zorro, what's the big boy you talked about, Il Blaze, and Fino, the lot of them. So, how come the one do not have prominence in Enugu in terms of media exposure? How come they do not have prominence in Enugu in terms of events and shows? They have to do specific events, do a Fino Blast or something like that to have people come to. But then they are national, international, almost global phenomena.
So why?
Why? I said because the major channel, the major media of exposure are radio and television. Radio and television in the Southeast lost their vibrancy after a while. So these artists, realizing what it's about, moved on to where they could get better patronage, get a better mileage for their content. So
how do we fix the radio and TV, the media?
That's going to be tough because, as I said, a good part of the media in the Southeast are public-owned media. That's what they call government media. And government media are usually traditional media. I know it scares them about modernizing their traditional media. They'll do things the way they've always done them. the politicians dictate directions and all of that, and the persons who man these places either lack the courage to say to them, hey, these are the trends, or they believe, well, this is what we have a duty to ourselves and to the sponsors to continue in this tradition. So that's one. Then two, the private media that spring up in the Southeast all tend to go along with the culture of the public media. They are not sufficiently courageous to break away and do something somewhat differently. And so, what do you expect? It's just about the same thing. So they're all kind of stereotypical. You have the same things in, out, and in between. Just about the same things.
So, you say we're traditional in the Southeast. Particularly, let's talk about Enugu, and most of the media outfits are owned by government. I think then it would only mean that the first step is, getting people to invest in the media. Private individuals who are courageous, because you said that there are some who are privately owned, but they are not courageous enough to, step away from the norm. So if we can do that, do you think that the entertainment industry or the music industry in Enugu would see the better of what they have today?
That also would depend on the philosophy behind setting up the new media stations you're talking about. Okay. So for them, we mentioned the part of it being an investment. Yes, it's an investment. An investment should at some point break even and then yield profit for the investor. So if people probably need to understand that media investment is not buying and selling. It's not setting up shop to sell sugar and rice and margarine. No, it's a long-term investment, and then it needs to have a direction. For it to be effective, you need to clearly define what you want to do with the station.
And it takes time.
That definitely does take time. Yes.
For like how long?
Oh, it depends. I hear people say, hey, Jika, how long do you think it will take to do this? I say, how long does it take for an investment to mature? It depends, one, on if you've done a feasibility survey, you need to know what your environment's like. And then two, you need to know the content you're feeding out. If you're going to do things the same way everybody's done, then you just queue up, join them, and then nothing happens.
Sure.
See, yes, so there has to be a radical departure from the way things have always been done if there's any expectation for things to change.
I like that word, radical departure. That's the adjective.
I said radical departure because if it's going to be a cosmetic adjustment to the way people have been doing things, you just really won't have any much impact. So it's the transition, the movement has to be radical, as I said. Move away, get a departure point and move away from the way things have always been done. Do them somewhat differently, and the shocking, it's been done before in Enugu. I mean, as I said, there are stations that have done it and they've proved it can be done. So and the sad thing is there's so much that could be done with media.
Okay, you were the MD of COSMO back in the day. Now, what was the direction for that station?
Before we started, we had a long-term survey. We looked at Enugu, found out Enugu had certain features, certain characteristics. We'd been sold this myth that Enugu is a civil service town. You have a lot of pensioners, you have persons who are retired in the evening of their lives. That's a myth. It's not based on fact. Enugu has a whole lot of, at the time we checked, impinging on the state, there were about 11 institutions of higher education that a radio station could have access to. All the banks have their regional headquarters in Enugu. The new businesses, the telecommunications companies had bases in Enugu. Now, what major characteristic did all these have? They were people by young or youthful, upwardly mobile, educated, urban-based persons who were used to modern, contemporary media content. So, we decided to feed them that. COSMO FM came in, created this content and said, look, this is our target audience. Who were faulted. People said, Jika, you can't do that. You're playing to students. And I said, no, that wasn't right. But in less than 6 short months, we'd established it. We took the lead. And that was it. That proved we got our mix right. The advertisers rushed us. They were there all over us. They said, "Look, hey, everybody's listening to you. We want to know what it's about. We want to be part of that success." So that's it. There's so much. It can be replicated. There are stations that have attempted to do things like that, but they need to be consistent. You need to resist telling them, no, this is not it. You can't do it that way. Insist, yes, not only can I do it that way, I have done it this way and it's working. You have results. There's nothing like results have a way of silencing criticism. You see, we got the results and it silenced them.
I've spoken with the Kunzi, spoken with Mr. Raw, and what they told me is the media. They keep resounding the media, and I don't think it's far-fetched from what you're saying. It's still the media. So the artists are blaming it on the media for not doing it. Now you are saying that yes, the media aren't getting it right, and I wonder how or who are those people who are the ones that are really pushing the buttons and preventing the media from
really no nobody is preventing the media from getting it. Probably we need to rephrase it.
Okay.
I hope I haven't given the impression that there's a clique somewhere that's stopping the media.
No, I don't think
the
you
media,
did.
Yeah, no, the
I'm
media.
just trying to get something out of you. If maybe you don't mind.
It's a thing of introspection. The media practitioners need to look in.
Okay.
Again, I had said that about narrowcasting, and then now I'm going to say this about management. Media management is a specialization. We get to find that the persons who manage media in these areas either lack contemporary media management experience, or they lack any experience at all. A guy gets a license, looks for his cousin or niece who has been an announcer or a presenter for 18 months and brings her over and says, come and head a station. It's happened in the southeast. It's headed to crash.
Putting the right people in the right places.
Yes, it is bound to fail. So there are matches. I have nothing against tradition, but you do not get somebody from a traditional media outfit that we've identified in the southeast, set up a new station, ask them to run it. They are going to replicate what's happening in those stations, and that's another problem we've had in the southeast. The persons who they've been either got as consultants or to run these things have come from a public media environment, and they have come with that baggage. I have no matter. I'm a product of that system too. I was in Radio Nigeria, I was in NTA, Channels TV, AIT. So I've got experience that cuts across. But I think you really need a brilliant mixture of both public and private media. And then in a competitive world that's getting increasingly so, you need a whole lot of understanding of the workings of private media, how private media work today, to be able to manage, to be able to run media that are relevant to the aspirations and the needs of your audiences. So that's the point. It's not, there's nobody sitting somewhere saying, no, you can't do it. The persons who are managing media are not coming up with sufficiently brilliant ideas to run vibrant media. No, they haven't done that.
So we need to work on the management then.
They have to work on. Yes, they have to work on it, because
there should be the form of paradigm shift too in that area, because people really need to begin to understand that if we continue with the public, then of course we can't compete with the private.
Yeah, and you going back to COSMO. To do COSMO, we also had internships with media stations that were vibrant. Today's radio, television stations around here and there around the world. I'm not going to be dropping names, but that exposed us to the way things are done. You see, some people still work with the culture of getting persons who must work in all the departments of a public radio station. It doesn't work any longer. It doesn't. It's you probably need to cut it to the size of your plan, the objective of the station. That's what I said. Before you set up the station, you must necessarily know who you are targeting.
No.
Yes, and then what are you targeting that audience with? What content? You have to be audience specific, you have to be content specific.
You spoke about internships. Now, is it that these internships are COSMO FM had people learn from others, or others coming to learn from COSMO?
You know, to set up a station, we learned from others. We went to media stations that we thought had got it right, understudied them, watched them at close range from afar, had mentorship situations. So we were ready really to take on something different from the way it was done, the traditional way of doing things at the time.
So I think with that being said, I think our media here, we need a lot of learning to do.
Yes, training and retraining. And then the conscious willingness to unlearn what they've always believed. That's a problem I have with the South media and the Southeast. They just generally believe that this is the way we've always done it. I do training. I go to them and say, hey, can we consider the possibility that the way we've always done it hasn't been right? I'm going to say they've been wrong, but can we just think of, in absolute humility, accept that we haven't got it right? That will create the platform for us to begin to relearn and then learn something new. We need to first accept that we haven't got it right, then unlearn the things we've always learned. We've always believed we are right, and then move on from there and learn something new. That's the only way we can get it right. Training and retraining is a priority.